All right, so hello everyone, and good morning to all of you. So this section is the Bachelor of Arts program in Language and Culture. So I'm the student president. I'll be outlining a little bit of what we do here in Balak. So just to show you a little bit, there are three sections in our talk today. The first section is going to be me doing a monologue and telling you a little bit about what we learn in Balak, and just to leave a little bit of a student impression on you. The second section is going to be purely on the admission process, and then on the third section, we'll be talking on the notorious interview that a lot of people, a lot of person ask to us online. So all of those answers are going to be talking and be broadcast to you in this specific event. So let's begin. So there are a lot of questions of what student Balak learn, and let me give you a very broad general idea of what it is about. So the thing is, because this is a live broadcast, a lot of people don't have to travel to the university, but let's imagine that you have to travel to university, and how would you normally travel to university? So Chulalongkorn University is situated in the middle of Bangkok. You could call it a CBD, or Central Business District. And so normally if I or a lot of people were to ask you to come to university, you would basically come in maybe with the BTS or maybe with a bus. Depends on your mode of transportation. But the thing is, one of the reasons I would like you to ask yourself is, why are you using why are you using the BTS or why are you using the bus? And it's a really important thing to think about the why, because that's a lot of things that we do here in Balak. And so a lot of people would be saying, well, because taking the BTS is faster or taking a bus is cheaper. But the thing is, the thing you have to understand that both of these things are both public transportation, the thing that takes you from point A to point B in the city. And this is going to be quite Bangkok-centric, so bear with me if you're not from Bangkok. So one of the reasons that you might choose, between the BTS or bus could be your financial assets, right? Maybe BTS is more expensive than the bus. And the thing is, if you were to look at the worst case scenario, for example, you're earning a minimum wage per day of 300 baht, taking a BTS is already 130 baht round trip. So that's 35% of your daily wage. And should it cost that much? Right. So this is one of the main things that happens in the city of Bangkok, is that public transportation costs too much, or there's way too much segregation happening in the city. And not only you're choosing to take a bus or the BTS, not only that you only in terms of financial matters, there's also for other matters like social class and many other things. And actually, in terms of academic, we would call it a intersectionality. And I'm just introducing these to you. You don't have to know what intersectionality means. Basically, the core thing is that there's so many things that are all connected in order to form the way how the person thinks or how a city think. So, going to the BTS, a lot of people would say, taking the BTS is, a lot faster because there's no traffic on the BTS, right? Bangkok traffic is one of the best known, infamous traffic system in the world. And the reason that there's a lot of traffic, that you have to start asking why there's a lot of traffic. And that's also one of the main things I would like you to understand in this talk, is the idea of why. And start asking yourself a lot of the questions that you see around the country or around the city. For example, you saw traffic. Why not use the BTS, right? So the main thing is, why are you choosing that BTS? Because there's a traffic. Why is there traffic? No. So you see a lot of people using cars and motorcycles. And why would they use it? Do they have a minimum income? They cannot afford to buy a car, they cannot afford to use the BTS every single day. So that's the main thing that you have to ask yourselves, and you have to understand how the city works. So A lot of people say, oh, I use a motorcycle win or like a motorcycle taxi system. It costs less, and and there's always a reason why people choose things to travel around the city, right? And so going back, so if I were to say that, okay, you have to come to university, one of the main thing about this university is a lot of malls. So, and this is another aspect I would like you to think of. Why are there so many malls around the university? And what happens to public parks? And what happens to clean streets? And, clean air, for example. And so the main thing that we study in Balak is that, we're studying cultural studies. And in cultural studies is that there's literally anything that, there's everything that happens in this city. Anything can be counted as culture. So you see that there's a lot of malls. That mall culture exists, for example. And so the thing is, the city of Bangkok, the way that a city happened, the way that the people in the city think, it shapes the way that city, both in terms of geography and in terms of how people live, shapes a certain mentality that people have. And the thing is, this shared mentality is something that's basically what it means to, what it means as a culture. So a part of a shared mentality in a city is also a city culture, urban culture, is what we call it in Balak. And, from little things like, trying not to have an accident, or trying not to die crossing the road in Bangkok is a part of the city. And, maybe getting off a bus in the middle of the road, that's also another culture. There are negative things about it, but there are also positive things. We have one of the best street food in the world, even though more regulation needs to happen. But anyway, that's also some positive things that come out of it. So I would like to basically finalize my talk a little bit on this. I've been going on about, city and how people think in the city. But the thing is, the core ending that I would like to ask you is that you have to, if you want to be in this program, if you like this program, what the main thing is you have to be able to answer the whys and come up with the hows. So not just, oh, this happened, that's it. That's not the main thing that we're going to have. The main thing is the ability for you to have a critical thinking, to think of why things happen. And the other main thing is that you saw the word culture everywhere, and that's basically it. I know it's a cliche to think of it that culture is everywhere, but that's exactly the point of culture. It existed everywhere. So two main points I would like to tell you. Culture is everywhere. From example of the city that I just show you. Culture is not always, in terms of English language, culture is not always positive or negative. It's just everything, right? And acknowledging those culture is one of the main things that you are required as a student in the Balak program. And not only acknowledging it, you have to be able to critically analyzing those culture, and those are the two main things that I would like to ask you to start thinking in that way in order to understand and in order to be in this program successfully. So that's basically the main point of my talk. And so going on with the same idea of culture is everywhere and critical thinking, one of the best thing that you have to go, not the best, depends on the view, but one of the things you have to go through in order to be selected as a Balak student is through its interview and the admission process. And that's the main thing that you are required to have, that's critical thinking. A lot of people ask online, oh, how the interview is going to be, how the interview is going to be performed. Critical thinking is one of the main factors that you need to have as a high school student that would like to come into the Balak program. And that's where I'm going to go to the next session. I'll be talking a little bit on the interview process itself, and in the last section, we're going to go through the interview itself. So, the admission process, I have a friend coming. His name is PK, so he's in first year. So I'm in third year. I haven't introduced myself, sorry, but you're going to not remember my name anyway, so it's fine. PK, you're in third year. Sorry, you're in first year. My apologies. So let's talk a little bit on the admission, right? So the thing is, BALAC is an international program, and international program does not use the same system as a Thai program. However, in the admission process, because this is not a Thai admission, but you still need to have a TCAS account in order to get processed through the application process. So in the BALAC program, we have 2 rounds, right, PK? So can you give out a bit of information on what those 2 rounds are?
Hello guys. Okay, so I'll be talking about the 2 rounds of interviews that will be in applying for our program, which is BALAC. The first round is based on interview. You do not have to pass you do have to pass the requirement score, but however, you don't have to exceed to a certain amount of score. It's based entirely on your interview performance. Yeah. And for the second round, it's also interview, but in addition to that, there will be a written examination. So you'll be weighed from both the interview exam and the written examination exam.
Right, so you were saying that there are 2 rounds. Just to recap, right, there are the interview exam, the first round, and the second round is interview and the written examination. So that's the 2 main admission process that we are taking in. So for example, I am in the first round long ago, because I'm in 3rd year, I'm already very old, and but anyway, so my point is that the first round, applicants have to go through quite a bit of interview. You have 30 minutes each. So imagine 30 minutes with 3 ajans and you alone in a room. Sounds scary, but it's not. But if you are qualified enough, then you should be able to answer those questions quite easily. And the thing is, the question is not, out there. The main question is, about yourself, basically. So basically trust in yourself and go with it, right? And so the thing is, the admission process so you now know there are 2 rounds, and so the next idea is a bit of a timeline, basically. So the first thing is you have to set up a TCAS account, right, PK, and then the second thing is the requirements. So can you talk a little bit about the requirements, what is needed in order to apply for BALAC?
Obviously, there are equivalency tests that you have to pass, which are SAT, CUTIP, and all that. You can look up in that in our official website. And when you pass that, there are the application application file in our official website that you can go in and apply. It will require you to write your information like normal applications, and at the end of the application process, you will have the SOP. The SOP requires you to write about something about yourself or something you want to express to the BALAC professors or to the BALAC program. And it's not more than 1,000 words. So after you submit that, alongside with your equivalency test, then you wait for the BALAC website or the BALAC official pages to announce dates for your interview, announcement dates for eligible interview candidates, and finally the accepted candidates.
Yeah, so that's basically the main idea, what's happening in the admission process. Just a bit of a side note, a lot of people ask that, do I have to have, for example, the first round of BALAC requires at least IELTS. I'm going with IELTS, so bear with me. So at least the minimum score is 7.0 for the first round. So do I have to score 8.5 to be more eligible? No, if you score 7.0, you're doing very well. So that's good. That's it's not even a baseline, just you pass, basically, or be eligible as an applicant. The main thing, and I'm talking about the first round now, the main thing is interview. If you're able to go on with interview and you have that critical thinking that I was talking about, you should be just fine. And so the English score is not, the one that judged you. A lot of people ask, this is one of the most frequently asked questions in the BALAC program, because we are in Faculty of Arts and it's quite renowned for its languages, but you are not required to have, IELTS 8.5. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to go in. And PK has a little bit of story about this as well, because he got someone he knows, right, that doesn't have to score 8.5, right, PK?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of my friends they did pass the requirements. They did not have a wow score, but trust me, they're doing completely fine in the program. They're doing just fine as someone who scores like an 8.5 or a 9 in IELTS or an SAT of like 600 and above. So regardless of that, I think it doesn't matter, and you're doing fine if you pass the requirements.
Yes, so the main idea is basically how well you're doing in your interview. And for the second round, how well you're doing in both the interview and the written examination. Right, so that's general sense of the application. If you would like to know more, we have information, loads of information on the website and also on our official Balak Instagram, Balak_official, and also on the Facebook page. You can find us there as well. All the informations, all the relevant informations are there. So yeah, so this is a general sense of it. So let's continue and talk a little bit on the student life, because both PK and I are students in the program. I'm in third year. I'm in global concentration. In case you already read this curriculum, I'm in global. PK hasn't selected his concentration yet, but will eventually. So in the general sense, so the reason why we are both here, because I'm the one that spent most of my time on campus, and PK is the one that spent most of his time online. So that's kind of tragic, but it's okay. But so the student life, we'll be covering a little bit on the activities and academic sense of our student life. So general information here is that we have around 100 to 120 students per year. So it's not a big program. So and normally when you're in a class, you would be in a class of, it depends. If it's a lecture, you're going to be in a class of 100 plus, so your entire year are there. And if it's more of a smaller classes, for example, like a seminar or a concentration courses, you will have to go through a little bit of a smaller classes. Some classes in concentration only have up to like 6 students. So that's a very, very small class, but what it meant is that you would have a lot of time to interact with the lecturer in the course, and our evaluation criteria depends on each class. Some class has to go through tests, like midterm examination, final examination. Some class has a different criteria score. For example, final paper, for example, you have to write a 3,000-word final paper in order to show that you actually know your things in the class. Right, so PK, how was your online class?
They were definitely a bit hard to adjust, because it's I think my first time experiencing in a pandemic. Unfortunately, because of COVID, most of my classes are online. But I think the main focus of that is that I know it's hard to focus, but you really do need to focus. I'm just going to be honest that it's pretty hard to focus, but as long as you're focused, I think you're going to do fine. Regarding the community and I'm experiencing, I think that obviously being on campus allows you to enjoy your first year university life more. But unfortunately, because of COVID, it's online. But however, I made a huge amount of friends and made great bonds with my friend regardless of where I am. So I think, yeah, you're going to be fine if you're in here. And plus, I think Balak 14 or potential Balak 14 students, the situation will get way, way, way better. And you're going to come in probably having most on-site class. So you'll probably be the most unfortunate.
So let's hope so. Thank you so much, PK. So basically, we were hoping that we could come back and do a full-scale event and doing an on-campus class, for example. So once you come in, basically what PK and I have talked a little bit is an idea of academic. In terms of activities, there are loads of activities for you to do in terms of like both PK and I are representative of our year, so I'm the president and PK is the president of his year. So there are activities that you can practice your soft skills and prepare yourselves for the future occupation. But also in terms of other activities, we have a Balak trip. Unfortunately, PK hasn't gone through it because it's online, but we can assure you that all of our activities are very, very well prepared, and all our activities are designed for you to enjoy yourselves. And potential Balak 14s or 15s or any future generations, I hope, that will come into the program will be able to enjoy themselves, both in terms of activities, but and academic as well, because once you come in, you have been through the interview process, and you should be able to enjoy yourselves within that program. Right, so let's continue about the most notorious question of them all, the interview exam. So what I have with me is Ajahn Kunaya, the director of the Balak program, that will talk a little bit on the interview itself.
Okay. So he's our Balak director, and also he's the professor of modern history and.
You don't know what I teach. You're taking my class this semester.
So what do you teach again?
I teach one of the semi-compulsory first-year courses, History of Western Ideas, and I also teach a lot of the general cultural studies courses, like, for example, Introduction to Anthropology. But I also teach some of these more specialist global culture courses, like, let's say, culture and globalization and post-colonial cultures. But yeah, that's what I generally teach.
Okay, so we'll be asking him questions regarding the interview, because that's obviously what you guys are here for and most worried for the upcoming interview test in about 2 weeks, I believe.
Yeah, I think a little bit over 2 weeks.
Yeah, okay, so as an Ajahn and both the director of Balak, what do you look for in students coming into the interview exam?
The key word the key thing that we're always looking for is curiosity. Because, like, you're just graduated high school. We don't expect you to know everything there is to know about, like, Lacan, Foucault, Bourdieu. But we expect you to be curious and be, like, have that drive to learn, drive to find out more, like drive to ask, well, why? And to maybe, have the drive to express your questions and give opinions, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think one recommendation for that is that you have to be pretty vocal about your own opinion, and you're not afraid to express your own opinions regardless of what circumstances you are in. Okay, so moving on to the next question I have for you is, a lot of the potential students are worried about that they aren't aware enough of the current world situations or current world stigmas and problems in both Thailand and globally. So do you think it's that important to put a stress on that, or is it more about you expressing your own opinion vocally?
I'm going to give you a very Balak answer to that, which is yes and no.
Yeah, I agree.
See, because is it important that you need to know something about global affairs or culture? Yes. Is it important that you need to know all the things? Like, you need to know off by heart every word to, let's say, the original French version of the Les Miserables novel, and also know about the whatever that happened in the US earlier this year? No. But what we expect you to know is that if, let's say, in your SOP, you say that, like, you're passionate about something or you're interested in something, we are expecting that you're able to talk in depth about your interest. Like, I'm not talking about facts. I'm talking about, the why questions. Things like, why are you interested in this thing? Why this and not that? And I think that's the key part of the Balak interview, is that be prepared to answer the why questions.
Yeah, I think you guys are putting too much stress on reading current news and spending a lot of your time just on reading news, current events, and I think that's necessary and that's important. But I think what's more vital than that is that, like, for me, when I went into the interview examination, I did not know a lot of stuff the Ajahns were asking, but then I did talk my way through expressing my opinion vocally, not being scared, and I think that's more essential and that's more important than reading current news or current events. And I would like to say that this is like a tip and a little bit guide on the interview examination, is that they're mostly going to ask you about your SOP. And if there are any current events asked, they will probably come from your SOP. So I would like to say that know what are you going to be talking about from your SOP, and I think you're going to do completely fine.
Yeah. Or if it's not from your SOP, then it'll be from your answer to other questions. Because you have to remember that with a lot of Balak Ajans, all of us are researchers, and a lot of us do our research by interviewing people. So we have a lot of interviewing experience. And a lot of cases, we do what's called unstructured interviews. And that means basically not having a strict list of questions, but rather creating new questions based on your responses to previous questions. So be prepared that whatever your responses are, there will be questions based on those responses. Like, let's say if we ask you, so what do you do in your spare time? And you talk like, hey, I like playing computer games. Don't be afraid of saying that, by the way. Like, remember, like, most of your Ajans were born when, games like Doom and such like came out. Don't be surprised if your Ajans are gamers also. And we would ask you about, questions like, if you like games, might ask you questions like, how do you think gameplay impact your experience of the game?
Something like that. Yeah, they will relate you to what you've been asked on the previous questions. Yeah.
And don't be afraid to say, I don't know, but don't say I don't know, full stop. Say, I don't know, but I think. We don't expect you to have the correct answer, but we would like you to have an answer based on what you're thinking, because the way we see it with a lot of our questions, especially in a lot of our exams, there isn't really one correct answer, with exception for factual things. Like we're not looking for a correct opinion. Like we're looking for well-defended opinions and well-developed ideas.
Yeah, so it's more of just elaborating your answer. I can't stress this enough, but you have to elaborate your answer. You can just say yes or no, or a two-way answer. That's not going to help you. So yeah. And one more question I think a lot of people have been asking in online platforms is portfolio necessary?
Not really. We're not going to be looking at your portfolios as a part of your assessment. That being said, for in-person interviews, we're not quite sure yet, but it looks like this year interview will have to be online, unfortunately. But we're not 100% sure about that yet, but that's the way it's looking. But if you applied in this round, which you have a couple of days left to go, you'll be emailed information about that, and we'll post it on our website. But anyway, to go back to your question about portfolios, no, you don't need it. Some people find it helpful to have to use as kind of like a physical PowerPoint slide when you're presenting yourself, or when you're introducing yourself, I went to this camp, see? Like that sort of thing. But we're not going to if you just hand it to us, it's
yeah. From my experience, I did bought mine in, but then the Ajans were just and they're done. Honestly, it's more just, you are the portfolio. You tell them your experience. The things on your portfolio doesn't really matter. So, do you have any last advices or words to give to our potential Balak 14 students or people that are thinking of applying for a second round?
For both of the rounds, you'll be interviewed. You'll be interviewed first round you'll be interviewed no matter what. The second round you'll be interviewed if your score meets the criteria. Your written exam score meets the criteria. But in general, when you're interviewing, don't be afraid. Take risk with your question. A lot of people, I can tell when I'm interviewing them, they're afraid of being wrong. They want to say something, but they're afraid to be wrong. So they're oh, no, I better not say it. No, just say it. Because, again, you're high school students. We're not going to expect you to be right at everything. We're expecting you to show curiosity by saying those things. And, if something's factually wrong, maybe we'll help correct you, but we're not going to hold it against you for being factually wrong. Again, like we're looking more at your reaction to being factually wrong rather than the fact that you're being factually wrong.
Okay. Definitely. So I think that's it for our open house event for Balak, and yeah, so we'll see you potential Balak 14 students,
Right.
and I hope to welcome you to the Balak community.
Yeah, and don't forget, first round ends at Monday at midnight. So if you're planning to apply in the first round, make sure you get your applications in by that time. Okay, thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Wow, that was wonderful. Excellent, excellent information from, the director of Balak, Dr. Kunaya, and also our student, Kun Chatpakon and Kun Bragon. They are excellent. Give us wonderful, insightful information about Balak program. And don't forget, Monday at midnight, that's the first round. If you're real interested, please be prepared and then send your application process. One thing that I learned from Balak program is that you need to be curiosity. You need to have the curiosity and also explore it and also make sure that you are your best portfolio. So don't forget, know yourself, know what you're doing, try to explore new things, and that will get you into Balak program. So good luck, everyone. Thank you so much.